Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the Blabosphere, whether you're watching live or on replay. My name is Art Jones. I'm the principal consultant at The Art of Standing Out, where we use brand strategy, storytelling, and design thinking to help you market better so you can sell more. And today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Andrew Frazier to The Art of Standing Out, where we talk to standout personalities that are standing up for what they believe and thus standing out in the communities that they serve. So welcome, Andrew.
Hey, good afternoon, Art. How you doing? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I am so excited to have you here because, let me give some context to what we're going to do today. This is an interview, but I don't like using the interview word. It's really more about a conversation, but the conversation's intention is to find out about the journey that you've been on and how you have become the entrepreneur executive that you are today, because I think that the story of that journey certainly should inspire some, because I know it inspires me, and it should give hints to people that are trying to find their way to the top. As how to get there if they model some of the things that you've done. But I started these conversations really curious about the journey of the entrepreneurs I speak to. And it's inspired by an author, Elizabeth Gilbert, who I saw in a TED Talk. Elizabeth Gilbert wrote a book that was wildly successful called Eat, Pray, Love. And then she did a TED Talk, or maybe it was an Oprah talk or something. And she said, she had gone to the podium on many occasions and had presented her ideas about find your purpose and everything will be great. But once you find your purpose, everything will be fine. If you don't find your purpose, go find it, then things will be fine. And one day, after making one of those presentations, she got a letter. And the letter said, "Dear Elizabeth, I was in the audience at your last presentation where you told everybody to find your purpose. And if you hadn't found your purpose yet, you were less than everybody else that had found their purpose." And the letter went on to say that I was crushed. I was humiliated. I hadn't found my purpose. And the letter went on and it made Elizabeth Gilbert stop and pause. She said, "I've given that presentation over and over and over again. And I wonder how many people in the audience felt the same way. How many people in the audience had I really made feel like less than the other professionals in the room that had found their purpose and were following their passion?" And she came up with a new talk that said, look, some people are born like jackhammers. They're like arrows from the age of 7 years old. They go like an arrow. They know they're going to be a dentist. And like an arrow at 27, they're a dentist. And their life was just like that arrow, straight for the target. Other people are like hummingbirds or bumblebees, and they go from one thing to the next thing, and they take all of the things that they have in their life experience and their academic training in the professional world, and at some point, they take all that in aggregate and they say, well, finally, this is exciting. Now I can take all this and I can go fix something broken in the world. So our mission today is to find out if Andrew Frazier is jackhammer and like an arrow, or like that hummingbird that's been going from place to place and taking a lot of things in aggregate to make you who you are today. But before we get started, I'm going to give a brief introduction, which is difficult with a man that's accomplished so much in his career. Andrew Frazier, Jr. is president and COO at AJ Management, where they provide business strategy, financial management, and employee benefits. But if that wasn't enough, he's a seasoned business professional with a proven track record of more than 20 years delivering superior results. Andrew has proven leadership excellence across various functions, organizations, and industries. He currently works with organizations and individuals to enhance strategic plans, improve financial management, solve problems, and achieve goals. Andrew's background includes top-notch education, earning a BS in mechanical engineering from MIT, serving in the U.S. Navy as a logistics management engineer, and has an MBA from NYU Stern School. He also serves in capacity as Navy Supply Corps officer, corporate executive, nonprofit leader, board member, and as an entrepreneur, his depth and breadth of experience enables him to take a multidisciplinary approach to solving problems and implementing solutions. I could go on because there's so much more. But in the interest of time, we're going to dig into what makes the man that he's become today. And, I could start with MIT because, we all honor those that get into MIT and the education that you gain at that wonderful institution. But I want you to take us back before high school. What's the genesis of what makes Andrew Frazier who he's become today? Is it family? Is it coaches on the field of athletics? Is it mentors that from the business community in the town you grew up? Take us back to the beginning, if you would, Andrew.
Okay, great. I think growing up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, definitely one of the biggest contributors is family. From my grandfather to my parents to my uncles and aunts and cousins, family has had a very big impact on me from the beginning. Beyond that, being involved in church, having an opportunity to work entrepreneurially as well as work with different organizations, starting out as an entrepreneur in fourth grade, having the opportunity to become a paper boy in Pittsburgh. Even though it's a basic job, it's actually really a full-fledged business. You have an opportunity to really market, get new customers. You do sales. You have to collect money from your customers. You have to deliver the product. We had to do it 7 days a week. And with myself and my brother, we actually accomplished that for 5 years.
Wow.
And it was a great development experience. Learned a lot about customer service and communications. And one of the biggest things that came out of it is really customer service and dealing with people. We used to be the only paper boys who would take and put your paper inside the door every time we went around. So we wouldn't throw it, you wouldn't find it in your yard or wherever. And actually, when I go home, all of our customers still remember us and say, "You were the best paper boys we ever had." So
that's product differentiation. That's really super. 5 years from fourth grade to ninth grade, I guess. That's amazing. But you briefly mentioned your granddad. Talk a little bit more about your granddad. Was he a business owner? Was he an entrepreneur himself? What about granddad that inspired you as a young man?
Really, he was a great inspiration. He grew up, was born in North Carolina, but moved to Pittsburgh to actually work in the steel mills during that time, which was a great job and opportunity. But he didn't just work in the steel mills. He had 3 jobs. He worked in the steel mills. He was maintenance, janitorial for Carnegie Mellon University.
Oh, wow.
Which actually gave him the opportunity to send all of his kids to Carnegie Mellon University for free. And
wow.
And then he also had a business. He had a dry cleaning shop that he, ran for many, many, many years. And actually, my Uncle Eric took over, and it's still operational in Pittsburgh now.
So having multiple jobs is in the DNA of the Frazier clan, it sounds like, but picking the right jobs to have, working at Carnegie Mellon so your children can go to one of the premier institutions in the country for free, not a bad strategy. Not a bad strategy. So your aunts and uncles went to Carnegie Mellon because your dad worked there, went for free, and no doubt that had to be instructional as to what you were going to aspire to in your academic endeavors, not just running a paper route, but being a student in class. Talk a little bit about those early years. I mean, we could spend a lot of time just talking about your grammar school and junior high years, because it sounds like Granddad was foundational in terms of what he was doing to instruct what you should be doing in your own life.
Definitely my grandfather was very inspirational and set a great example, and encouragement, for all of us. And, the funny thing is, even though all of his kids could go to CMU for free, actually only one of the 7 end up going there.
Okay.
But all of the other ones were actually, were able to make their own way and be successful in their own ways. Growing up, my parents were tremendous. My dad and mom were married for pretty much my entire life. So, that foundation, that stability, that commitment, follows through in, what I've learned, how I've been raised, and what's important to me. Along with that, my dad and my mom had different characteristics that really made a difference. My father was into sports. He actually was a excellent basketball player in high school and got a scholarship to college to play basketball.
Wow.
But somehow he ended up playing football instead, and in college as halfback, and did pretty well. And went to school at Fayetteville State, North Carolina, which was a teacher's college back then. But he was always proud that now it's Fayetteville University. So he was a great impact. Started in baseball, played baseball for many years, played basketball. We had a hoop out front, and for a few years he was able to beat me, but eventually I was able to overcome him. And that was a great day.
I can imagine. So you've got strong academic background in the family history. You've got a strong work ethic with everybody working 2 and 3 jobs. You talk a lot about your dad and his athletic prowess, right? As an athlete in high school, were you an athlete in high school or junior high school, and did sports play a role in forming any of the skills that you have as a leader today?
Definitely sports was a part of my growing up and had a very big impact. In high school, I actually played on the tennis team for 4 years, ended up being one of the co-captains my final year. But it's kind of funny how I ended up being a tennis player, especially in the inner city. When I was in 3rd grade, my parents moved to a new neighborhood, and there was a park behind our house, and there was a baseball field, a basketball court, and a tennis court.
Okay.
And with the tennis court, there were a lot of kids in the neighborhood. Tennis was the big sport. Like, you would play basketball while you were waiting to play tennis. Wow. But they wouldn't let you on the court if you weren't any good. So for the first 2 years, I would be hitting the tennis ball off of the school to figure out how to play well enough to actually get on the court and play. And, so, you always have to put in the hard work before you get the results. But eventually I was able to get on and hold my own. And by high school, I was pretty good and had an opportunity to play on the tennis team.
That's amazing. I mean, you were talking about hitting the ball against the wall for 2 years. That's real commitment to do the work required to play the game. And if I had an X-ray that could tell us where a young adult gets that kind of drive and determination, it would be a great technology to have, because we all want to know what you tapped into. And it wasn't a job. It was you being good at something and making the commitment to practice and practice for years so you could play the game to be part of that conversation in tennis. And ultimately it served you well because you ended up as co-captain in your senior year. So kudos to you for commitment and accepting the responsibility to improve your skills so you could do what you wanted to do. That's amazing. The paper route beginning in the fourth grade, you and your brother had for 5 years, delivering papers, not just tossing them on the lawn or tossing them into the pool, but putting them behind the doors of all your customers. So you were differentiating yourself from all the other paper deliverers. And the fact that you can return to your homestead in Pennsylvania and have adults remember you for your professionalism as a paper boy is pretty danged amazing. I know school teachers will be in the grocery line after teaching for 10 or 20 years, and adults will be in line behind them and say, "Hey, Mr. Frazier, you're my teacher from third grade. I'm so happy to see you because remember what you told me. It served me all of these years." And they say thank you. But to have somebody thank you for being a good paper boy means you were the best paper boy I've ever heard of. Well, so listen, there's in the journey of all the stories that have ever been told, and no doubt your story is like this. We're talking about from fourth grade until your senior year in high school, where you were co-captain of the tennis team. Were there any struggles that you had to overcome? Were there hard times, and how did you overcome some of those early struggles? If there were none, let's move on. But if there were some that you can tell us about that you found the strength, or you found a guide, or you found a mentor to help you get past that so you can continue on your journey, tell us about it if you have one.
Okay, well, actually, there were two struggles. One when I was pretty young, actually, when I in first and second grade, growing up, I was actually having a little bit of trouble in school, and so much so that my parents took me out and sent me to a private school for a year that didn't have a grade. So, I had an extra year, and then came back to third grade in public school, and stronger and more prepared, and was able to, from there, really each year my grades sort of improved and got better, and I peaked at the right time because in ninth grade I got to the point where I got straight A's, and continued beyond that. I got it for the first time and continued beyond that through high school.
Wow, that's amazing. So your parents both had great vision. They knew how to help you accomplish more. No doubt, it's the exposure to the Carnegie Mellon and a family that valued academics to the extent that they knew how to fix what was holding you back to help you accelerate and accomplish more. That's amazing. So let's go on. And co-captain of the team, getting straight A's in high school, co-captain of the tennis team. And how did MIT come into your vision? What other choices were you looking at, and why did you choose MIT?
Okay, well, I always wanted to, from middle school, I was always good in math and science and wanted to study engineering. And pretty much for most of my high school career, I had planned to go to Penn State.
Being from Pennsylvania, right? Yeah.
Being from Pennsylvania, Nittany Lions, great football team. And actually, at that time, they had an African-American dean of the engineering school. But I took the PSAT and did pretty well on it. And actually, MIT sent me a letter, and there was a recruiter there, Eddie Grotto, who reached out to diverse students to, try and get qualified students to come to MIT. And, he was on me, and, encouraged me, gave me insight in how to prepare, through my junior year and senior year. And I was able to apply and get in, which was tremendous. And that was my number one choice.
Fantastic, fantastic. Number one choice was MIT. How did you get involved? And you did ROTC, I guess, because I know you went on from there directly into the Navy. Did you do ROTC?
Yes, I actually I won a Navy ROTC scholarship, which basically is a full scholarship that pays for your full tuition, for the full time. And that was great because at that time, MIT was the most expensive school in the country. So that helped out a lot. My parents were very happy about that. And, I was able to get that as a result of being in a program, Urban Youth Action, who, were the founder, Bernard Jones. Throughout my experience, he was a great mentor and leader. He helped make sure that I was fully considered for the ROTC scholarship because for some reason, my application kept not getting to the right place and other stuff. But he was able to make sure that the right people knew, and I got my interviews, and I was able to be awarded a Navy ROTC scholarship, which was
If
huge.
if you had to pick one thing about your time at MIT, which we all just generally revere for the talent it produces, but the one thing that you would say you took away from the university experience that continues to serve you today, can you pick one thing?
Oh, well, the biggest thing, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I met my wife Janae there, and we went out for the full 4 years while we were there, and got married a year out of school, and now we've been married for almost 25 years.
Well, I can say with Mother's Day coming up, it would be remiss for you to not say that. So if you had to pick the second thing that was the most important thing from your MIT time at MIT, and not your diploma from MIT, but what other experience comes from the hallowed halls of being an MIT student there that still serves you today? Anything?
I think the biggest thing about being at MIT is, unlike some schools, it's harder to get out than it is even to get in. So, when you get there, they make you do your work and spend a lot of all-nighters. But I learned a tremendous amount and really learned how to learn. So that served me well in everything I do because, I'm not afraid to figure things out and can learn them. And, in this, in the way things are now, you have to always continually be learning.
Wow, that is so true. Never stop learning is a credo that we all should live by, especially with the dynamic world we live in. There's when you stop learning is when you get stale and the world just passes you by. So from MIT to fulfill your ROTC commitment in the Navy, in leaving the Navy, you came right back to academia and got an MBA at NYU. Did those things happen in rapid order succession, or did you take a break after the Navy to come back to the Stern School and get your MBA?
Well, actually, I sort of had laid out a plan while I was at MIT I knew I wanted to get my MBA. I knew I wanted to get my MBA at NYU. And I knew I wanted to be a consortium fellow, which all of those happened. But my time in the Navy was great because as a logistics officer, I ran all the business functions for a ship. which was a tremendous learning experience, business and management. From the Navy, I actually, rather than going straight to school, I came out and took a general management job at a company called McMaster-Carr, which is a big company, but they're pretty much one of the largest industrial, or probably the largest industrial supply company in the country. And at the time, they were UPS's biggest customer nationwide.
Wow.
I ran a department in a warehouse and we shipped 8,000 orders a day. So learned a lot about operations excellence and running things. So I did that for a couple years before going back to get my MBA.
So, and I know that in your stellar career, you did take some of that logistics experience and operational experience as a COO to a group called the Executive Leadership Council. Can you talk a little bit about that experience? I mean, because there you were running an operation. Talk about ELC, what it meant to you to be exposed to those leaders that you worked with, and that experience just briefly, if you could.
Okay, and let me just give a little bit of background because while I was in business school, I had an opportunity to be mentored by a member of the Executive Leadership Council. And members of the Executive Leadership Council are, tremendous leaders. Basically, to become a member, you pretty much had to be within 3 levels of the CEO at a Fortune 500 company. So it was a tremendous experience just spending a full day with one of the executives of the council. And actually, beyond that, they were looking to maintain a connection with the students that they had mentored and students that won their scholarships. So they created an organization called the Next Gen Network, which was basically started out as MBA graduates primarily, and as they progressed through their careers, became middle managers, became successful, and that was a great learning experience because it maintained my connection to the Executive Leadership Council, and I actually was active there, becoming vice president, president, and then even board member after that. I participated in that while I was at the New York Life Insurance Company as an executive, and basically introduced the New York Life Insurance Company to the Executive Leadership Council. And as a result, I had been involved with the organization for a long time, understood what it was about, had relationships with a lot of people, and really had the great opportunity of being chosen to become the chief operating officer under the CEO, Carl Brooks. At the Executive Leadership Council, an opportunity to interact and work with many top-notch individuals, and really expanded my learning. One of my first assignments was to do work on a strategic plan for the organization, putting together a 5-year strategic plan, working with board members, working with consultants, working with the internal staff, and we were able to develop a great plan that was unanimously approved by the board. So had an opportunity to do some strategic planning. And the Executive Leadership Council also had an Institute of Leadership Development and Research. And at the time, there wasn't a director, so I was sort of the interim director of the institute as well. Wow. And one of the things we did was we ran a year-long program for high potential executives. I had attended the program about 5 or 6 years before, actually in the first year of the program, and then went full circle where I was one of the leaders pulling the new program together, and had an opportunity to make to enhance it. One of the big things we did was American Express was one of our sponsors for the organization. So we were able to connect with them to actually have one of the 3 on-site sessions at the Amex building. And Ken Chenault came to speak to the group of 30 people in the program, which
Wow.
he is such a tremendous individual, and it was super educational and inspiring.
Well, Ken Chenault coming to talk to 30 individuals, and Ken Chenault, I don't know how many gazillion dollars he earned, but he was running one of the biggest companies on the planet, and taking his time to come to talk to people ascending the ranks at ELC just sounds like an amazing opportunity. But as you're telling the story of your time at ELC, at the Executive Leadership Council, what sounds like there's a theme that's consistent throughout your life, your work life, academic life experience, that you've always been reaching out to, or somebody's always been reaching out to you to help mentor you, to help guide you. And there's been no shortage of senior level executives that have helped you navigate to get where you are. So it sounds like mentorship and coaches and guides and just putting yourself in position to be with people that have already got to the top of the ladder has been a benefit to you.
Yes. Throughout my life, I had many mentors, coaches, counselors. But one thing I'd have to say is we didn't necessarily portray them or view them specifically in that light. It was more about relationships, value-added relationships, both ways. They had some tremendous experience, knowledge, and other things that I did not have, but I had things to share with them as well. So, that was one of the reasons why, I was able to spend so much time with people like that, because, I did my homework and tried to make sure that, it was a win-win and we were both giving and receiving.
That's a beautiful sentiment. And there's a networking group that I've participated in a little, not a lot, but I love their tagline, because I think it applies to what you just said. They say you have to give to get. And I think a lot of times when we think of mentoring, we think that we just sit back and say, okay, now mentor me. You've already made it. Tell me what I need to do. And what you just said, and it sounds like what you have lived throughout your life and work experiences, I'm always going to bring something to the party. I don't care if it's Ken Chenault, my experience as a naval logistics officer, my experience at MIT, my experience as a co-captain on a tennis team in high school informs me to have at least one thing that I could tell Ken Chenault, one of the senior executives of one of the biggest companies on the planet. You're always looking at what can you share with them to help them accomplish more. So it's that notion that mentoring is not a one-way street, them always bringing to you, but it's really a knitting together of and a mashup of if you don't bring something to the party, don't come to the party. It sounds like what you're saying. And mentoring is not a one-way street. It's really a party where it's a mashup of ideas. And I think that certainly is my takeaway from our conversation this morning. Don't always be looking to get from your coaches and your guides and your mentors especially. You should be looking to support them with your ideas that you're willing to stand up for and share. Great advice. We're running out of time, unfortunately, and we've not gotten to the founding of AJ Management Company, the founding of the Power Breakfast that you host on a quarterly basis, the founding of the several businesses that you own and operate. Can you tell people a little bit about those businesses and then just talk a little bit about the founding, why you founded these businesses? Because, with your background, you could work anywhere you wanted to, but it sounds like you've got the entrepreneurial spirit that guides you as well. Talk about that a little bit.
Definitely starting out as a paper boy and an entrepreneur um, led me to other entrepreneurial ventures and opportunities throughout college and throughout different most of my life. But it was always in the background primarily. Um, but when I went to business school, planning out my career and my future, I sort of put together a 10-10-10 plan. And what that was, my thought was I'd spend 10 years in corporate, which I did nine, 10 years as an entrepreneur, where I'm on about year 7 or 8, and then 10 years in politics, which not sure if I'm going to end up doing that, but you never know. um, so, on the entrepreneurial side, one of the things I wanted to do was take my experience, my knowledge, uh, my ability to solve problems in a multidisciplinary way, and bring that to bear for individuals and organizations. Over the years, my organization has changed significantly, starting out is with a focus on consulting and doing some work in the real estate business. And then moving forward to encompassing training, um, encompassing uh, coaching, business coaching, to encompass the Power Breakfast, which is an event that I help put together with some friends, and I think that's one of the ways we significantly developed our relationship through
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
And what it is over the past 5 years, the Power Breakfast provides basically helps entrepreneurs, business owners, and organizational leaders learn best practices, enjoy great networking, and also gain useful knowledge that they can put to work within their organization immediately. And we've been doing it for 5 years every quarter at the Newark Club, which is a high level, tremendous location for businesses. And had speakers from across the country with different areas of expertise in business. And that's been a great experience from a learning standpoint for me and others, from a networking standpoint, from a relationship building standpoint. I have many um, people and businesses that I've done business with as a result, as well as them doing business with me and doing business with each other.
Yep.
So, it's been a great platform to, bring something needed to the community of Newark and surrounding areas, especially now that Newark is really going through a type of renaissance, and a lot's going on there, and a lot of opportunities, and helping to create a way that more people can have access to participating in those opportunities.
I was, I'm really glad that you made time to have this conversation, because it's, through the Power Breakfast, I had the luxury of speaking there once, and that's how we know each other. But I know you better today than I have known you since then, because you have dropped a lot of the background of who you are that I was unaware of. That is really, I think the word stellar comes to mind, because the words I wrote down is that you've always been committed. 5 years from fourth grade to ninth grade, 5 years as a paper boy, never dropping the paper on the lawn, always putting it behind the door. That's product differentiation at a high level. That's marketing at a high level. That's building customer allegiance at a high level from a young age. And it sounds like you've never stopped, because you committed to do the work to become a good tennis player, because you wanted to become a good tennis player. And it sounds like that kind of commitment in everything that you've done is a lesson for all of us listening live and listening on replay. If you don't commit to do the work, you can't expect to get the reward. And your commitment to planning, the 10-10-10 strategy, that's brilliant. And it's, in Japan, the Japanese have Kaizen. They have the 100-year plan. Most people don't even have a business plan. but you have a 10-10-10 plan, and you've really held to that. And again, it speaks to commitment and consistency. That's very amazing. It's very instructional for those of us that want to accomplish a fraction of what you have accomplished. If we have a consistent commitment to do the work, we too can aspire to greatness the way you have. I'd like to invite you back because I really want to drill down into the business that you founded, right? Because I think in the founding of those businesses, there's the structural things you put in place to assure the survivability of the businesses that you founded that I think can help all of us that are founders and solopreneurs and entrepreneurs understand more about how to do it well so we can achieve excellence. But for now, because we're winding down, we are entering the lightning round, which I like to think of as the humanization of the brand. Because these questions, are you ready? They're rapid fire, one after the other. If you had one word to describe yourself, what would it be?
I'd say architect. I'm very good at designing as well as bringing things together and resources together.
If you have one guilty pleasure that you can tell us about, what is it?
I think it would have to be Mountain Dew. I think I'm addicted to it.
No.
Because I have one every day.
Not the Mountain Dew. What's the biggest risk you've ever taken?
Actually, that's hard to say. But what I'll say is I've taken many risks, and several of them have turned out to be much bigger risks than I expected them to be.
Okay, but you're still standing.
But I'm still standing.
What is your biggest life dream?
Really to make a difference, to create some institutions, and to see my family and my kids successful.
Fantastic. If you could ask just one person, alive or dead, for advice today, who would it be and why?
It would have to be Reggie Lewis. He was tremendous. If you don't know of him, he's an African-American gentleman who actually did the biggest leveraged buyout ever of TLC Beatrice in the history up to that time. And he was just amazing. And I learned a lot about him through his book, which is Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And,
that's a great title.
I think that says it all.
That says it all. That's pretty cool. So that gets to the next question I was going to ask you. Name two books you can recommend. Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun by Reggie Lewis? It sounds like one of them. What's another one?
Well, I think I have two on that end as well. One of them is the classic, the best, and that's Dale Carnegie. The Leader in You, any of his books, tremendous. And the second one is actually called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And it's basically about the myth of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs, because it's not really what you think it is, and you don't figure that out till you're actually doing it. And he helps you figure out how to do it better.
Those are great suggestions. Share two pieces of advice for entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, founders, employees, people in general that are in business. What advice would you give to people that can guide them to help them achieve more, get to the next level?
Okay, I think, number one is, one saying I heard that I think is totally true is the harder I work, the luckier I get. So, luck a lot of times is the combination of, when preparedness meets opportunity. And so putting in the work allows you to be prepared to take advantage of opportunities. And the second thing that I had heard from a business leader, I think is entirely true, is, they asked him, how did you become a successful business leader? He's like, because I make good decisions. And they said, well, how do you make good decisions? By previously making bad decisions. So, I've done my share of that, but, it's allowed me to learn a tremendous amount and be able to bring a lot of experience to the table. And as an entrepreneur, you're going to make a lot of bad decisions, but you just got to keep it moving.
And I think what you just touched on is what I call, that's what makes a great leader, because a great leader begins to see the patterns, and the patterns that stay away from those things. I've seen that before. I've seen that movie. I'm not going to do that. But these things I've seen where I have had success, and these things that nobody's seen before, I think I can have success. I'll do that as well. And that's what leaders, they have a great sense of self-awareness and their intellect, their intuition, and their sense of empathy for people and situations help them make the best decisions, because they catalog every event in their life, and they see them coming when they're good, and they see them coming when they're bad, and they know how to make those choices. Preparedness and understanding patterns. I would expect from a mechanical engineer and a finance guy that would be the kind of thing that you would use to guide you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing so much of your time today. I'd like to invite you back. I've got to have you back because we've got so much more to talk about. I'd like to delve into the notion of talk about the founding of your businesses, how you made them successful, how you sustain them. Come back, talk about leadership and leadership style and what makes a great leader. You've got great exposure to that. You've got great information to share. Thank you to everybody live, and thank you to everybody listening on replay for joining Andrew and I in this conversation. Today is Thursday, and it's one of those days we're here on The Art of Standing Out. We talk to standout individuals that are standing up for the ideas that they believe in to stand out among the crowd, and Mr. Frazier is one of those individuals. So thank you, sir, for
thank you thank you for having me, and would love to come back and continue our conversation.
I look forward to it so much. Drop the link in the stream as how people can reach you. I actually am starting another blab in 43 seconds, so I've got to run. And that blab is with a group in New England that is doing inbound journalism, which I think is a fascinating subject. I'm excited about beginning that conversation. And inbound journalism, Coach Jenny, is like inbound marketing. This is inbound journalism. It's marketing on steroids for content creators that we all should be producing great content. But they've got a novel approach to doing inbound journalism. I invite everybody to come and join us here in about 6 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, everybody. Until next time. Bye for now. Peace.
Okay. Bye.